So today I'm going to share with you 7 quick tips that I use in my daily work life that will tell me or give me a hint to make things quicker in my job. They're all different. They're all to do with different parts of my job. And I'm just going to jump straight into them because I've already wasted a bit of time on this. So I'm going to just jump straight in anyway. Number 1. If you've got a patch of a dampness on a wall and you want to know whether it's coming in from outside inwards or if it's an internal problem that's manifesting on the wall that's going outwards, like a cold patch or whatever, cold spot. If you get a key or a sharp object, screwdriver, Stanley knife, if you're allowed to scratch the plaster, you scratch across it and you make an indent into the finished plaster. And you can go into backing plaster if you want. If it's sand and cement, you'll probably not get far. But if it's a gypsum based plaster or if it's a lightweight plaster, you can get like a fairly decent gouge. It only has to be 2 or 3 inches across. And what you're looking for is that the colour of the plaster underneath, so on top, if it's a damp patch, it's going to be a dark colour or a watermark, or if it's on newly plastered walls, it'll be like a reddy colour. So if you want to, if you scratch this groove in, and then you see that it's a light colour underneath, if it's a beige colour, you know that that's dry. So the underside of a pink finish when it's not wet is pink, so it's like really pink. So you scratch that. If it's pink underneath and dry, then you know that it's coming from inside. So it's just surface. It's just going to be a surface condensation or surface moisture. If you see that it's wet all the way through, then you know that it's coming from outside. So you know that it's either going to be rising damp, penetrating damp, or a leak, or a leaking tap. So 2 weeks ago, I went to a job of ours. We did it just before Christmas. It was one wall in a kitchen. We hacked it off up to 120. It had been done before, and guy who'd done it before had used a membrane on it. But where radiator was, he'd not took radiator brackets off. So he'd put membrane on it and then not sealed it round brackets and left original plaster on. And that sort of spread across finish. So we hacked it off, put our system on, which was plasterboard express system, stuck that on, and then blended it in at top. So put an SBR on top to blend board in to existing plaster. We'd already told woman that she'd not got a fan in kitchen, so we'd given her a price for fans for bathroom and kitchen, but it weren't within her budget at the time. So she left that, and I got a WhatsApp message off her just after Christmas, and she said the damp has come back. It's coming back. So she sent me some pictures, and I could see that above the board what we'd put on, we were blending in. There were some dark patches on there, a moisture, and then there was one that were down the door casing that seemed even darker than others. So, because I got on with woman, I decided that I'd go through on a Sunday. So I said I'll come through and I'll have a look at it, and I had an idea what it was. So I got there, and I said, first thing I said to her, I said, "Have you got an air dryer?" Because this is second tip. So I didn't want to scratch plaster because we'd only just done it, but she'd not had it painted. So this was bare plaster, and then wall were painted where we blended in above, and the patches were just round. So they were like a round patch about that big, about as big as my hands if I'm putting them together, and then same in corner. So they're just two places. And I says, have you got an hairdryer? She says, yeah. So she fetched her hairdryer down. I plugged it in, and for 5 minutes I stood there and just blew the warm air onto the damp patches. And it's the first time I've had an hairdryer in my hair for 25 years. I said to her, I says, I've not had one of these before, for it might be even be 30 years. Hang on, how old am I? 25 years I'll go for. 22 at a push. That'd take me down to 30. 30 when I first realised I got an hole in back of my hair, at back of my head, like a nest. And it weren't me that noticed it. I'll tell you who noticed it first. Lee Tinner, one of my mates. We were playing football. I had a big full head of hair. I was like a lion, and right mane. And I'm playing football one day, and it were raining, and all my hair were wet, and it were half time, and Tinner come up and he's rubbing back in my head. And I think, what's he doing? And he was rubbing back in my head like that, and never thought on it out of it. And then I think I'd gone for my haircut, or somewhere, and I noticed when they come with mirror at back, and I was like, oh my god. And I'd always said if ever my hair started going, I'm having it straight off. I'm not waiting about. I'm not hanging on to it. I'm gonna have it straight off. So that's what I did. Straight got a pair of clippers, put it straight down to. I think I did it at number 2 to start with. I didn't bick it, and then I think 2 weeks later I bicked it. I let my scalp get used to it, and then I bicked it. So I'll throw hairdressing tips in for free. So that was it. So I dried it, and you could see that the damp patch were getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. If I'd have stood there for another 20 minutes, it'd have all gone completely. And what were happening was, it were above where we'd put board on, and I think dark casing, there must have been a cold spot, and then on above wall with solid plaster wall, it was a solid wall, and it was thermal cold bridging from outside, and she'd not got any ventilation in kitchen. So this were an issue. She got no ventilation in kitchen. She'd not had radiator put on either, and she'd got bare plaster, which is very, very absorbative. That's the word, isn't it? Absorbative. That's the word, isn't it? So very absorbative, and it just absorbs moisture. So it's porous. I think that's what it's porous. So moisture will absorb more than if it had been painted. So his advice was dry it up, get it painted, and get your ventilation in and get your radiator on. So that were what the advice that we gave to her. I mean, the issue was she was waiting till plaster dried to put radiator to paint it and put radiator back on, but these cold spots were appearing because it weren't painted and because she got a lack of adequate ventilation in the kitchen. So it was going round in circles. But we put her mind at rest, and hopefully she's sorted that out. We've not had any calls, so I'm thinking she's sorted it out. Number 2, doth is in Spanish. This is to do with sump pumps. So a few weeks ago, we got contacted by I'm saying it was before Christmas. So we got contacted by a couple who they'd had a basement conversion and a pump fitted by a company in Sheffield, Sheffield's leading basement conversion company, who coincidentally the owner is related to Gav. So and he's welcome to come on the show anytime he wants. Be nice to pick his brains about basements and stuff. So I'll try and have a word with Gav and get him on. I'm not mentioning his name, I'm not mentioning company, but if you look online, they made a great job. Fitted him a pump, and for some reason I don't think they do services. So I think they'll duct work. I don't think they do pump services. But they phoned me up, asked me if I'd go out and do a pump service, because they thought pump had broken down. So yeah, I'll come and do it. Sent him an email through. Told him price at service for a basic service, which is we just go through a checklist, have a look at it, make sure everything's all right, clean it up. It's a basic checklist. I mean, if you had a list, you could probably do it yourself, but we leave them with some paperwork. So if it's basement does flood, the insurance can't say that they've not maintained this pump. So we sent them through the price, the acceptance form, which they signed and they paid. Sent to a lovely couple, and we got there. I got to property. Got all my tools. Took them downstairs. Put cover down. Took the floor up, because we told them it were underneath floor. We told them that flooring needed to be took up, but they couldn't do it. So I ended up taking floor up, and then taking second floor up, and then taking cover up. To which I sent pump, which it didn't look as if a lot of water had been going in. It didn't look as if pump had been on for a while, but and there weren't much water in bottom, so it didn't look as if it were being used really. So I don't think a lot of water were going into property, and kind of they were stood on my shoulder watching me, and I were explaining everything and what I was doing, explaining to them that it didn't look as if pump had been on. And then I says, where's because we have to go through a checklist. I says, where's isolation switch? And she says, oh, it's there on the wall. So I looked on the wall, and it was turned off. So I turned it on, and pump started going straight away. Anyway, I finished off going through checklist, and when I'd finished, they got a bit arsey. They got a bit because they paid all this money. I mean, what she'd said was, she thought one of her kids had turned this isolation switch off. And so this is my tip is, if you have got sump and a pump and you think it's stopped working, always check the isolation switch first. There's a start when I was doing my structural waterproofing exams. We had a lecturer called Phil Hewitt, and in fact I've heard this story twice. I've heard it from Phil, and I've heard it from another person, because it's a story that it references a court case that went off, I think somewhere in London. Was it in London or was it at school? It's either London or at school, I don't know. It's a long time ago. No, it was a school. That was it. It was a school, and the company's been out and they've fitted all these pumps and what have you. And because they were getting flooding in this hall, so all these pumps were fitted. And they came one night, and it had been raining, and all the hall were flooded, and they're trying to get to the bottom of what had happened, why pumps had failed. And when they got out there, they were looking round, and basically they'd put an isolator switch within reach of kids, and obviously it was a school, and with kids, if there's a sign that says wet paint, they'll touch it, if there's switches, they turn it on and off, They just do it. It's just temptation for them. So this is why you have to have isolating switches up in air, so people can't reach them and turn them off. And get them for tenants for fans as well. Make sure that they can't turn them off. These actually switches that you can isolating switches that you can get that are kind of tamper proof, because we've had to put one in on a job that's tenanted, and we don't know whether it's for certain, but me and an electrician were suspecting that the tenants were turning the fans off because they were continuous fans, and obviously price of electric energy at this point is quite expensive, and they were still having issues, and we think they were turning these fans off, so we swapped it, and so far so good. We've not had any issues so far. So if your pump has stopped, check if there's an isolator switch and just make sure that's switched on, and then you can call for a service from someone to get a service done. So number 3, window reveals. If you're getting black mould forming on a window reveal, obviously you've got it's a lack of adequate ventilation inside property, so that's a given. But also it's a cold spot that's being created. So if it's a modern building that's got a cavity wall, what tended to happen in 70s and 80s, they didn't use cavity closers, so they'd plasterboard straight over reveal, so you had like a gap that went into cavity, and that creates a cold spot. So it's normally only a thin board, and sometimes it didn't go all the way up to window as well, so you get these cold spots, and you get condensation and black mould forming on inside all the way around. One thing that you can do is to, if you know a plasterer, is to take that reveal off and put a cavity closer in there, then put an insulated board on if you've got enough give. So another thing that window fitters do, I'm not having a go at window fitters because it's just one thing that they do. You got your PVC windows, and a lot of surveys that I go on, around the window where they've had the windows changed, if the new window goes in and there's a gap, the window fitters tend to put a plastic strip that's about 2 inches wide. Sometimes the further, if gaps bigger, they'll do it further, and they stick it on all the way around. Now, years ago, window fitters used to fit windows, and then they had the plasterers go in and the plastic windows in. Now they just stick these plastic strips because it's quicker. But what I've found is when we've took these plastic strips off, because black mould forms all the way around, because it's a cold spot, when you take these strips off, they haven't been formed all the way around, so there's just dots, and that again can lead to cold air coming in from a cavity, or if the mastic's not applied correctly outside, you can get holes from there, and you can get air flowing through there, creating a cold spot. So one thing you can do is take that plastic strip off, get and form it all the way around, slice it off level, and get a plasterer to skim it in. So that's tip number 3, window reveals. Number 4, if you live in a property that's got a cellar, an old Victorian property that's got a cellar, or an Edwardian property that's got a cellar, then if you are getting standing water in there, so if sometimes you go down and there's standing water in there, there could be, it's either the water table rising. If it's a water table rising, Victorian properties were made for water to come in through the brick floors, and there were normally a drain somewhere in room, and it were built on a kind of a slant. They weren't level, so that water came and it'd run towards drain, it'd go into drain and then out. And this normally, if it's a terrace property, it normally ran through terrace. So if it were on a hill, so your water came in at top and then ran down and then ran into sewer. Sewers could get backed up. So nowadays, with more properties being built, the strain on the sewer system is greater. So there's more volume of water going into main sewer, and it can back up and come back into properties, but it will eventually run back out. That's how they were designed. But if you've got standing water in there and it's more than like say a foot or 2 foot, there's definitely an issue. So I went to a property in Ireland. I went to 2 properties actually, and they were all in short space of a couple of weeks, and they had issues upstairs in front bedroom and back bedroom with black mould. So I'm looking for a source of moisture, and I saw that they got a cellar, so I says, can I go down in the cellar? And it were about 2 foot. I put pictures on YouTube on video. So it were a foot or 2 foot in water, and she didn't know it. She didn't know it was there. They didn't go down cellar. So I can't believe that. She says, I don't go down cellar often. She says, I know it was there in summer. So, but then it went. But then now it's back. So, first thing I said to her was, I should ring Yorkshire Water, get them out, and they'll do a test for foul water, and they'll do a test for clean water. And there's a difference between tap water, which comes through from Yorkshire Water, sewer water, and natural water. So they test for all these different pigments, and they can tell you if it's groundwater that's come up through ground or surface water. They can tell you whether it's sewer water. Obviously, that's going to stink, and it's going to have other stuff in, detergents in and things like that. So they do all the tests, and so I'd left it with this woman and said, you need to contact Yorkshire Water. They came out, they had a look at it, and it turns out that next door, their stack, which is stench pipe, stack, soil pipe, whatever you want to call it, were cracked underneath or cracked somewhere, and that were going straight into her cellar. So she were getting all doggo water, as I call it, straight into cellar, which is not healthy, I'll tell you. Good thing about it, obviously there's good things and bad things. So good thing about it is, because it's Yorkshire Water's fault, more or less, because I think pipe weren't outside, it weren't her fault, next doors. They came and sorted it out, and I think I know this next door's insurance paid for all her cellar cleaning and everything, and we just said make sure you get plenty of ventilation in there, because I don't think there any ventilation, and that has sorted her problem out. So before, if you are getting standing water, before call a surveyor out, get onto Yorkshire Water or whichever water company is in your area, and get them to come and do some tests first to make sure that it's not a burst water main, cracked sewer, cracked pipes, crack gullies. So you can kind of rule them things out. So if it's not Yorkshire Water's fault, then maybe get a drain survey done. So somebody will send you a camera up your drains and check for cracks. Because if it's surface water, when it rains, if you've got surface water going down your down pipes and then into your into your rainwater pipes, then that can seep into ground and then work its way through into your basement. So that's just another tip. Always go to your water company first, and then get your drains and things like that first before you get a surveyor to come in and have a look. Always check if it smells as well, because if it smells, then that could be a big sign. If you've got a smell of detergent or a smell of doggo, dog muck or whatever. If you're all looking at each other every night saying, "Is that you? Is that no? It's you. You dirty get. No, it's you. No, it's you. No, it's drains. Yeah, of course it's drains, because that's what they used to do." A quick story for you. Kid I used to work with, Dame and Sid, one of my best ever workmates. With apprentices, if you had him in car, he'd been on ale all weekend and curries and whatever. So it's either when they're working on Saturday morning or if they're working on Monday morning. What he used to do, he'd put heater on, so it went on like red hot, and then he'd put windows up and lock them, and then he'd let one go in car, and then he'd be saying to him, Can you smell drains outside? Can you smell drains outside? And they'd be like sniffing, and he used to stink like an old buffalo. So it'd be like they'd be throwing up and trying to get window down, and like trying to hold their breath and everything. He were I think he still does that now. He still does it now. Old Sid. So yeah, just reminded me of one of my stories from the site. So that's what Sid used to do. He stink like a buffalo, and yeah, I'm gonna say what I was just thinking. There was another story with a water bucket, but I'm gonna save that one. If you suspect that you've got woodworm, insect infestation in your timbers, if you can see your timbers, what you need to check for is just check to see if there's any, I'm going to call it for layman's terms, so the ordinary person can understand. Just check if there's any like sawdust around top of holes. So that sawdusty type stuff is called frass, and frass is what comes out at end at other side at beetle. So it chews this. It goes into wood and chews it, and then it kind of knocks out this frass, which comes out at other end. And I could go into all details about frass, but this is just a quick. It's just a quick tip. So if the hole's clean, more than likely it's not a live attack. So you need to be looking around about May. Other thing is, look for if you've got any beetles or insects in your window bottom. So they always tend to fly towards light. So a lot of times they used to be called mayfly. So May, June is when they tend to pop out at wood and go round and mate, and then fly back round and lay their eggs on some damp timber. So look for them in your window. If you're thinking you gain more than normal, have a check around the house, and then look for these pinholes, 1 to 2 mil. Other beetles, I'm not going to get into types of beetle, but common furniture beetle, which is the most common one in England, that and wood boring weevil. Have a look to see if there's any frass rat holes. Tap the timber, and if any frass falls out, that's like a sawdust coming out, then you've probably got a live infestation and it's going to need treating. But if not, if nothing comes out, if there's no frass around top, it's more than likely been treated in the past, and it's a historic breakout. So that's a quick tip for telling whether the holes are live. And I'm just going to tell you this now. My dad passed away about 3 years ago. But one of the things that I remember him telling me, we're now at school, and that one of the things he told me, which is it's really weird. I don't know where we were, but he were on about beetle infestation in timbers, and he says tap it. He says if you tap it, if any stuff comes out, it's live. And my dad worked in mines and everything, so I don't know whether he'd seen it on a programme or what, and why he were telling me it, I don't know, because I never did any chores in house. My job was just fetching corking from outside. So we used to have a coal bunker. We called it a coal bunker, but we only had coke, which is a refined piece of coal. They take all things that create smoke. I mean, it's all long gone now, isn't it? Because you can't burn out. But so my job was in winter to go out with coal I'm trying to say scuttle. What did we used to call it? I just said bucket, scuttle, whatever. And I used to lift bunker up, and I used to normally have to do a technique because I used to keep forgetting, and then just fill it up, and then come in, put it aside at fire. It just sounds like Victorian times, doesn't it? Put it aside at fire, and my dad would throw it on. And I used to throw it on. What if you can imagine somebody trying to knock a door down with a big log like that, so you've got two hands on it and you're going backwards and forwards with it. That's how you put coke on fire. And you did like imagine a dog getting up back at another dog. And you did like that kind of motion to get coke in fire, because it kept filling up, and so you were pushing it with your hips and your groin backwards and forwards, trying to get it more coke in, so you didn't have to fill it up later on. Oh, joys of having a solid fuel fire. Anybody that lived round here, if they had well, they probably did. There's loads had coal fires, because the dad works in pit, and they got a discount for buying it. So that's why you had a lot of solid fuel fires. And now it's come full circle, because they've got pellets now, so it's you can't burn wood on them. If people thought they were saving some money by getting a wood fuel fire and boiler and things, but then because they thought they could burn out on it, and then they kind of changed goalposts and says, you can only have these pellets, which are like as expensive as gold dust, and so you can only put them on. You can't put all else on. I'm not saying people don't like, but it's so they're trying to get shut of them. In fact, they're a tiny island, and you have to read up on this. So I think there are a few villages in Ireland, and if you changed to a wood burner, you got a grant, and you got so many £1,000 just for having this wood burner. And I think people were getting like 1 and 2 and 3 wood burners in their houses, and getting more than the well, I think it was something in small print. They didn't say one wood burner per house, but they're having them fitted everywhere, like garages and everything. So they kept getting these grants sent through, which nearly bankrupt government. So number 6. So that was number 5. Insect infestation. Number 6 is dry rot. So this is a tip about dry rot. So how do you know whether you've got dry rot? Because dry rot is like a fungus that likes dark, humid, warm spaces. So it's normally out at way, under floorboards, in roof spaces, cupboards, just things like that, cellars, when conditions are right, subfloors. So what you need to be aware of, you get your spider sensors out, and if you can smell if there's a really strong smell of mushrooms, so it has to be a real strong musty smell, mushroomy musty smell. I mean, you get musty smells with moulds, but if it's dry rot, it'll be a strong mushroom smell, and you might see some red dust. So if you're thinking like, what's that red dust? And then a lot of people might think it's brick dust, like coming under floorboards or whatever. And you keep noticing it and keep wiping it up and it keeps coming back. That's one of the things that a lot of people said to us, well, I thought it was brick dust. And what it is the fruiting body, which is that's like a big mushroomy thing that grows. It's shaped like a pancake. It normally goes into a corner. That appears when the dry rot fungus is under stress. So when it's kind of all sugars out at timbers where it is, it needs to feed on more sugars from timbers. So it sends its strands out like that, looking for more timber, and these strands will get round it. But then if it runs out of timber, or if it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it needs more cellulose, sugars from timbers, then it starts to it gets even more under stress, and it goes a darker colour. So more stressed it is, more dark it goes. A bit like us really when we get embarrassed, I suppose. But only thing is we don't send red dust spores out. So these dust spores, millions and millions of them, fire out, hoping to land on some damp timber so they can start again. And these strands can go through brick, masonry, can go through through masonry, through pores. This is why dry rot is it needs specialist treatment when you find it, to make sure that you kind of treat every little bit. So if you've got these strands that's up in through your masonry, you need to somehow treat them. So it's a question of treating it with proper solutions. And if your timbers are starting to sag, or if your timbers look as if the blurred or the really what's the word I'm looking for? Delicate. If you can, you know what I mean. If they're getting brittle, that might be a sign. But I think before that you'll see red dust spores and you'll smell that mushroomy smell. So just think about them two: red dust spores, mushroomy smell. That's a sign. Get in touch with a qualified, competent surveyor to come and have a look from PCA. So that's number 6, dry rot. Number 7, this is the last one, number 7. And this is to do with just a simple thing. So if you're working in damp industry and you're using an applicator to backfill damp proofing creams such as Dry Zone or one of others, then every so often, what you do is, if you're not cleaning holes out with like a scoop, there's a special tool what you can buy, and it's like sort of a half crescent, and it's a long. I'm just trying to think how to describe it. Like a corer, like an apple corer, but it's long, so it's about as long as a ruler with a handle on it, and it's open at top, so it's like a letter C. So when you push it in with C facing up, and no, with C facing on its side, you push it in with C facing on its side, and then you turn it so C is facing up half a turn, and then you pull it out, and then that pulls all brick dust out that you've not got out when you've been drilling. So when you put your applicator in, which has got a metal cylindrical end on, so it's like a pipe, like a thin pipe. What tends to happen is, if you've not got that brick dust out, the pipe starts to block up. So every time you push it in, it pushes some dust into end at pipe. And more you use it, so then you want it next hole, and then next hole, and then next hole. This dust starts to compact into oil, so it needs to be cleaned regular. And what I've found is, the easiest thing to clean it with is one of them stirrers from your favourite coffee shop. So next time you go in, if you get a handful of them and put them in van, and then when you're using that, you just every 15 holes or so, push that down and turn it and pull it out, and just make sure that that's running free, because you won't believe amount of applicators I've gone through, and I never knew why. And basically, apprentices weren't cleaning all out, and it's partly my fault because I never told them to. I just assumed that they knew, and we didn't have out to actually clean it out with. So they'd be like trying to squeeze stuff out, and it'd just end up breaking top of applicator, and they'd be like, "Well, I don't know why it's broke," and they never put two and two together, and I didn't for a long time, till I was paying out for all these applicators, and now they last forever. So that's it. I've got to end of my list. I'll just go through them again. Well, I can't really go through them again, can I? Because there's no like titles. But I hope you got some value from it. And if you did, please give us a good review. And tell us that you've had some thing. And what I'd ask you is, if you've got any subjects that you want me to cover regarding damp, if you pop them in comments when you leave a review, I'll read them, and then we'll do a show on it. So any issues that you've got that you want any clarification on, stick them in review comments, and Damp Sam will sort them for you, because I'll read everyone, and I'll try my best to get your issue on air. So if you want to contact me, have a go look at our Facebook group, which is Damp Sam. No, it ain't. It's Why Is My House? No, it's not. It's Why Is My Property Damp Sam. That's it. We got the in it end, didn't I? Or you can go onto our YouTube channel, watch a few of my videos, search for Damp Sam, and leave a comment in there for us. Other things, I'm on Instagram, search for Damp Sam again. On Twitter, I think I'm at All Dry or at Damp Sam. I think I'm at All Dry, at Damp Sam. Just search Damp Sam on Twitter, I'll come up. TikTok, search for Damp Sam on TikTok, and I'll see you on social media platforms. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you on next one. See you later.